Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of our NR2003 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season here on the channel. Today, we have the second race of the round of 8 here from Kansas Speedway. 134 laps coming your way today. Stages are 40 laps apiece in stage 1 and 2, and then the final stage will be 54 laps to the finish. So, not a very long third stage here today now as for the first time this season, Jay over here actually gets to witness a Kansas race. Jay, you missed one race earlier this year, and it was this track, so you're not sure exactly what to expect, but it was a very clean spring race, but obviously a lot more on the line here tonight compared to that spring race looking at that playoff grid. What are you expecting to see here from Kansas Speedway?
I'm not entirely sure what I'm expecting to see other than these playoff drivers really want to make their way towards the front, and I also expect them to be aggressive as well. If we had a clean race this time or last time around, and if it was hard to pass, I expect that to be a little bit different this time around. And these guys are going to make every single pass that they can and be more aggressive with that stuff, and that could potentially cause some wrecks in this race. We also have a lot of drivers who are non-playoff drivers up towards the top of this field at the moment, and they also want something to prove or have something to prove as well. They want to get a win still, so they're not going to give up anything to these playoff drivers either. So I think this race could have the potential for a lot of things to happen, and I think we're in store for a good Kansas race.
Your top three playoff drivers to start this race are all Hendrick Motorsport drivers. Kyle Larson comes into today 40 points above the cut line. We did not have a playoff winner last week in Texas, so nobody is locked in for the second race of this round here now. And we look right at that cut line. Ryan Blaney currently 1 point above the cut line to start today over Chase Elliott, who's 1 point below. Truex out by 10, Byron 37, and Custer 51. Both of those drivers had issues last week in Texas Motor Speedway. Now, as we are underway for the second race of the round of 8, 134 laps around this racetrack. Jay, immediately, I was just mentioning, as well as Byron, Custer, had issues in Texas Motor Speedway. They find themselves in a very tough spot where they could be in a must-win scenario at the end of tonight. But you look at Byron already up in the top 10. What's the game plan if you're Byron? Do you have to be going for it at all times from here on out throughout the rest of this round?
I think you do, because stage points are not really much of your concern anymore. Even though he could still realistically point his way in, it's still very, very possible if other drivers have issues. He can't be counting on that at the moment. He has to be counting on himself going and get that win and locking himself in that way. And kind of the same thing for Custer. While I think it's a more realistic chance that William Byron can get a win over Cole Custer, it's still possible for Custer too. We've seen him have a lot of great performances in this playoff so far. That's why he's in this round of 8. He's outshined our expectations and done a really nice job. So it's still possible for Custer too. Just both of those drivers, I think, have to ignore points at this moment, and they really have to go and get wins. They can't worry about their points, because if they do that, they can find themselves in a situation where they're wind up wrecked instead of going for the win. So I think Byron needs to try and stay up front here all night long.
I'm sure you guys noticed if you're watching that we are at a night version of Kansas when the real life race is in the day. That is because this is simply the best working version I was able to get, was a night version of this track, because AI like to slam the wall on the exit of 4 and entering turn 1, but this one right here did it the least. They still will hit the wall here tonight, you will notice, but like I said, to the least amount compared to the other versions of Kansas Speedway here. He's got Eric Almirola currently there on the frame. He comes into today 13 points above the cut line. Jay, we've been talking about Almirola recently, where had a very strong start to the season, kind of fell off a little bit, and then he was been very mediocre throughout the playoffs so far, but has had enough playoff points to carry him through. But then last week in Texas, he showed up, ran top 5 all race, and now here he is 13 points above the cut line. Do you see him a legitimate threat at this point to make this Final Four?
I'm still not sure I see him as a legitimate threat to make the Final Four, but at the same time, he's put himself in a position 13 points above the cut line with so many other drivers already having a bad round just in one race. He might be in a position just based on that. Even if he finishes mediocre or just barely inside the top 10 for these final 2 races, he might just be in based on that. So I think Almirola could definitely make this Final Four at the current moment, being in by 13, and so many other drivers. He's got a very large gap back to Truex and Byron. So I mean, I think he thinks he's probably, or he feels like he's probably in a comfortable position right now. But 13 points is still only 13 points. He's got to be able to increase that gap and make sure that gap does not fall down. Just like any one of these other drivers in the playoffs, one bad race for Almirola could really spoil everything, and he could be way out of this championship for contention.
Kyle Larson is the only one that's even somewhat safe here in this current playoff situation. 40 points above the cut line. And if everything goes well today, Kyle Larson could lock himself into the final four on points. So he will have to be at least 61 points above that cut line. 60, of course, will guarantee him at a minimum of a tie. But like I said, he's looking for that 61-point advantage here to get into that next round. Now, Jay, we already see Larson currently running top 10. Do you think it is possible here? I mean, a track he's known to be good at. He could very well pull off that lock today on points.
Yeah, I think we could certainly see him do that. I mean, 40 points coming in is a huge gap already, and even if it stays around where it is, that's going to be a huge gap for that final race anyways. But I certainly think that we could see him get to that 60-point margin by the end of this race, especially here at Kansas. And I'm not too sure if these AI can run the high line, but if that high line eventually gets worked in, that's going to really play into Larson's favor. And once again, I think that we're going to see him be really strong here.
Should mention a fuel run, by the way, is approximately 27 to 30 laps based off of testing on times to tire and fuel wear. So expect to see these guys in already within the next 20 laps, and then they'll have another 10 laps to battle to the end of the stages here now. So Larson running up on that second lane. Looks like that second lane definitely not showing a whole lot of speed here in this first portion of this first opening 9 laps. Now, as you see, Martin Truex Jr. currently your top running playoff driver there in that third position, just behind Kevin Harvick, as well as Kurt Busch, Logano, Matt DiBenedetto, all up here in the mix. Jay, we're seeing a lot of non-playoff drivers spoiling the party already here in Kansas, and very well could see one of them win today.
Yeah, and I think it's really surprising at the moment to see all these playoff drivers kind of mine around the bottom of the top 10, and a lot of non-playoff guys up towards the front of this race at the moment. Martin Truex Jr. is our first one, and he's sitting in third place, and that's also not surprising to me either to have Truex be our first playoff driver. We've mentioned it several times that he's been probably the hottest driver in the entirety of this series over the last 2 or 3 months now. Well, more than that, over the last 4 months or so. Truex has just been extremely, extremely fast, and even though he's 10 points down, I still think he's going to make this championship 4. And Martin Truex Jr. I think is a serious, serious playoff threat or championship threat.
Here comes Denny Hamlin, though, that number 11, Truex's teammate there in that offer pad at Toyota Camry. He has been Kyle Larson's biggest competitor all season long here, 23 points above the cut line right now. As you see, Matt DiBenedetto up into second place there as Kurt Busch is leading the way. Now, as Jay, of course, DiBenedetto still no ride for him, and he's just trying to make the best of an unfortunate circumstances at this point here in Kansas.
Yeah, he's still driving for his career at the moment, still trying to show all these teams that he can perform, and even if it's not for next year, maybe for years on down the line where they remember, oh, he had this really strong run in this season and seasons before and all that kind of stuff. So even if it's not going to affect him directly for next year, it could for potentially further down the line in his career and come back to the Cup Series if he winds up leaving the series after this year and come back to a competitive ride. So DiBenedetto's still trying to do everything he can to prove himself and show teams that even if it's not for next year, down the line, he can still be competitive and they should give him a chance.
Kurt Busch trying to get one more win there for that Chip Ganassi Racing team before they do shut down, of course, at the end of this year. Kurt, of course, headed to 2311 Racing's expansion car with that number 45 Monster Energy Toyota Camry in 2022. There, as you see, Byron trying to make a move up the inside of Almirola. We were talking good about Almirola a few minutes ago, and now here he is actually outside of the top 10 with Ryan Blaney as well. Ryan Blaney came into this race 1 point above the cut line, but right now Elliot runs 10th place, so it would be a tie at the end of stage 1 if it stands the same here now, as we got a big line of cars right here now, as it looks like Jay, maybe guys afraid to even try and pass at this point now. It seems like that second lane not working like some of these guys wanted to, so it's almost like it's a safer option to run in just a single file train.
Yeah, that second and third line is definitely not working. As you saw Hamlin, they're getting to that second line and then shuffled out to the third line. He's going to lose a couple positions here, I think. But yeah, that inside line is extremely dominant right now compared to the other two. And these guys are just not able to make any ground up on it. They still get the run like you naturally do on the outside, but in the middle of the corner, you just lose too much ground. You can't make it up. So these guys are just, I think they're going to be bottom feeding this entire race. And then if that outside line eventually does work its way in, I think that we'll see them go out there because they'll be wanting to make passes. But the biggest thing is hold that bottom, kind of like you're at Talladega or Daytona.
Larson trying to make that bottom work there as he continues to move forwards now, trying to take 7th place away from Ross Chastain. Elliott going to follow through. Custer as well trying to follow through here as Truex still the best running playoff contender at the moment. They're right on the back of the 2014 Cup Series champion of Kevin Harvick there as they go down into turn one. Harvick, of course, had a miserable season, still has 3 wins on the season, a Daytona 500, a Daytona road course win, as well as Talladega recently a few weeks ago here. Now, as we're already 17 laps in, what we're going to do is go for a very quick break, and we'll be back in about 10 laps time to bring you guys to the first set of green flag pit stops into the end of stage 1. Back from Kansas, Kevin Harvick took the lead while we were on break from Kurt Busch, who's now under attack from these playoff contenders of Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott as well. Denny Hamlin climbing up into the mixed green flag pit stops, about to get underway here any moment now. So we expect to see potential strategy here on the line now for sure. I mean, Jay, you look at Kansas, of course, it is abusive on the tires here and there, so it would probably be smart to come in a little bit early if you're a playoff contender, I would think. And they were maybe going to see them come in. No, they stay out this lap, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'd try coming in early. Why not? It's still stage 1, especially for somebody like Kyle Larson. He doesn't necessarily need to worry about stage points that much. He just wants to get a win to make himself locked in and keep others from getting themselves locked in. So why not try and see what happens? But at the same time, some of these drivers are also probably thinking about stage points, and they don't want to wind up making a mistake like that. We're getting on pit road, and then a caution comes out. So I'm sure that's all in their minds too. And most of these guys might want to pit as late as they can, unless we start having this happen. A whole bunch of drivers pitting early. Martin Truex and Kyle Larson are first playoff guys pitting.
We got playoff contenders in the pit lane there. If you wanted to pit from this group right here, I don't think you could have even made it happen if you wanted to. We got Truex, we got Larson, we got Byron, as well as Eric Almirola. 3 Hendrick cars come in right there. Chase Elliott, the only one staying out. He is now down the pack right there. He certainly was not on the good end of that big pack right there, and he's still going to be in it. So if he wants to pit right here, it's probably not going to work out now, as you're going to see some more drivers pit. Playoff contenders, the leader of Harvick, and then you got Ryan Blaney as well as Denny Hamlin. So, Jay, I mean, a bit of a surprising call from Chase Elliott, who's been running strong in the top 10 here, and I honestly think he's going to maybe lose his shot at stage points now, as we're only going to have 10 laps to go in stage 1 this time by.
Unfortunately for Chase Elliott, I don't think that was much of his call. I think that was just the fact that he couldn't find his way to the bottom, and he just wound up missing out on his opportunity when he wanted to pit. And he's still not on the bottom here. If he's wanting to pit right now, he's going to have to do it either too wide or go around one more lap. Yes, he will go around one more time. Him and Cole Custer, both. Cole Custer needing to win. Maybe he's just trying some strategy of hoping for a caution, but certainly for Chase Elliott, he needs to get every stage point possible, and he certainly looks like he's ruining those chances right here.
We'll see what happens for those two drivers. How much are tires going to make a difference here in Kansas? We're about to find out now, as we expect, of course, Chase Elliott to be on the pit lane here. If we can just, of course, get the camera to cooperate and actually get focused on that 9 car. There he is right there. Him and Cole Custer are going to pit this time by. So there you see Harvick, who was leading by over a second at the time of the pit stops. Well, he loses the lead to Martin Truex Jr. here with 10 laps to go in stage 1. So, I mean, you can already tell the tires for sure making a difference. And Jay, a great call by that 19 team, who's 10 points below the cut line and right now on track to get 10 points.
Yeah, that was a really nice job of that 19 team getting it on pit road early, and also having a good time on pit road, getting themselves out in front of Kevin Harvick. But I don't know if that was maybe something with Kevin Harvick's pit stop or what, because I believe Denny Hamlin pitted a lap later, and he still stayed in front of Kyle Larson. So maybe there was something going on with Kevin Harvick's pit stop that slowed him down or something along those lines, or maybe just simply Denny Hamlin was very, very good on pit road and kept himself in front of Kyle Larson. But those two there, Cole Custer and Chase Elliott, look at the leaders are already gone by the time they're even going to be anywhere near up to speed, and they're also side by side, which slows them down even more. These two right here really got hurt by that.
Do you think 9 laps coming to 8 laps to go gives them any shot to use those tires? I mean, look at all the cars blowing by them.
I really don't think that it does. If you could pass here easily, possibly, but it's kind of hard to pass here. And with that bottom line being the only one that really works, and then also their tire advantage is only a couple of laps. It's not like it's 10 or 15 laps where they can maybe go and do something with that. It's only a couple of laps, so I don't think they're going to be able to make up enough here to get back to stage points.
Chase Elliott down to 19th place after being in the top 10 at the start of green flag pit stops. If he misses the playoffs by a handful of points, we're going to look back to this moment right here as what potentially costed him a shot at making the Final Four here for the 2nd straight season as he tries to defend his 2020 NASCAR Cup Series championship. Kyle Larson there in 3rd place. He is doing everything right so far here in Kansas tonight to try and clinch his spot into the Final Four based off of getting 61 points or more above that cut line here tonight. And Jay, I think we're seeing that 5 car as this run goes on. He's continuing to get closer and closer to the front. And now he's putting the fight to Harvick, who's been arguably the fastest car on the long run.
We didn't see the pass, but obviously he got around Denny Hamlin pretty quickly there, and he's caught right up to the back of Kevin Harvick, who's on the back of our leader, Martin Truex Jr. So these three here certainly have very good cars. Denny Hamlin has also worked his way to the front, done a really nice job of it. So these playoff guys, they started out a little bit slow, but they've worked their way towards the front towards the end of the stage and doing exactly what they need to do. And for Kyle Larson right now, he's inched himself ever closer to getting himself locked in by the end of this race.
Chase Elliott definitely struggling to get his way through traffic right now, as he's actually lost ground. He's down to 21st place. He was 19th when we last checked on him, when he of course cycled out and gotten up to speed. So might be a little bit more going on with that 9 car as well here, with 5 laps to go in stage 1. Now you see this train here. We got 5 cars: Truex, Harvick, Larson, Hamlin, Kurt Busch, and actually a 6 car of Alex Bowman as well joining the party there. We've seen Bowman really step up his performance lately, but still hasn't quite been able to put the finishes together. We'll see if he can do that here today. In Kansas, Harvick looking to the inside now. Hamlin trying to get to the inside of Kyle Larson here. And Jay, we know, of course, how important points are. I mean, as comfortable as Hamlin might be, he needs to still be trying to get every single point he can, and especially by beating Kyle Larson.
Yeah, he needs to get every point he can, and so does his teammate Martin Truex Jr. Even though, again, we say he's a championship favorite, he's still 10 points below. So Truex needs every single point possible, and he's just going to go from the lead in 1 lap to all of a sudden down to maybe 5th place, which is going to maybe even 6th, which is really, really bad for him. He needs to make sure to not lose that many points, and make sure that he gets every single point possible. So unfortunately for Truex, he just lost out on a good bunch of, or on a good chunk of points right there. But for Denny Hamlin, he made up quite a. Kyle Larson's got an issue. He's slowing down hard.
A big issue for Kyle Larson, the championship favorite. I don't know if that it looks. I mean, I don't think a tire's down on that number 5 car. He might be losing power here, as he has a 40-point buffer. And Jay, this is the moment right here of the season that could decide the future of the 5 car. It looks like Kyle Larson might be coming to a stop. And yes, he's going to be out of this race. A huge hit to Kyle Larson, who we were talking about maybe being mathematically locked in. Now he's going to be out of the race.
Kyle Larson has had an extremely rough last 2 rounds, and luckily for him, he's been able to rely on those playoff points, and I think he's still going to be able to do the same thing here. But it's going to be certainly uncomfortable for that 5 car once again. But still, going into Martinsville, a track that I'm sure he will be good at, again, because it's Kyle Larson this season. He's been extremely good. But if he has another one of these races next week in Martinsville where he has a mechanical failure or something go wrong, we could wind up seeing our season-long championship favorite out of the playoffs in round of 8.
We'll try to get an update on what exactly the issue was for Kyle Larson. He is still in the pit lane, white flag in the air, as you guys know now, for stage 1. A huge hit right there for Kyle Larson now as they exit turn 4. Kevin Harvick will come through to win stage 1. Hamlin gets second there, the first of the playoff contenders. Almirola up there in the top 5, Truex as well, and Blaney are your other playoff contenders in the top 10. So Blaney increases his gap above Chase Elliott by just 1 single point. So now Blaney is 2 points above Chase Elliott there on that cut line. And Truex, of course, made up 4 points right there. So he gets a little bit closer there to that final 4 now, as we expect to see everybody into the pit lane. The 5 car still sitting there now, 2 laps down. Jay, is that maybe a good sign that he is still on the pit lane, do you think? Maybe they could get that car back out there?
I think it's a good sign if he's able to get it fixed really quick, but even 2 laps down is, I mean, he's certainly not going to be a factor for the rest of this race, but they have to make sure that they don't lose a whole lot of laps here if they're going to get back on track. And then Kyle Larson's going to have to hope that chaos ensues in this race and a lot of cars DNF that he can finish ahead of. That's really the only thing. If he gets back out on track, that's really the only thing he's going to have to hope for.
And based off of the spring race here, action, well, there's action, of course, but wrecking wasn't a very common thing. Kyle Larson servicing the car now, actually. I just saw right side tires and now left side tires going on that number 5 of Kyle Larson. So whatever the issue is, it looks like they are maybe going to be able to continue that car now as they put the tires on. Oh, and you know what? As we say that, Kyle Larson is out, and the reason being, retired. We don't actually know what it was, but they put tires on it before they took it to the garage for good measure here. As Kevin Harvick wins stage 1, we're going to go for a quick break, and we'll be back for the start of stage 2. Back from Kansas, ready to go green for the start of stage 2. Stage 2 will complete at the end of lap 80. Denny Hamlin, you see in second place, has some left side damage. He picked that up as he actually drove into the right rear of his teammate Kyle Busch on the pit lane. So some left side damage on that number 11. We'll see if it affects him here as stage 2 gets underway in Kansas Speedway. You saw moments ago at the end of stage 1 with only a few laps remaining. Kyle Larson, the championship favorite, has a huge issue, loses power in his car, comes to a stop, and now is out of this race here in Kansas Speedway in the middle race of this round of 8, 40 points above the cut line. So he should still remain above the cut line at the end of today. But Jay, he's going to be in the exact same situation as he was in the last round going into that Charlotte Roval, where he is actually under a lot of pressure.
And not only problems for Kyle Larson, but now we have a problem for both of our top two drivers coming into this round. Denny Hamlin's got that major damage to his left side there, and he's in the third lane, so obviously he's slower just because of that. But I have to wonder if he's also being affected by the damage at the moment, and that's why he's losing these spots so quickly. We've seen drivers go up to that third lane and still be able to kind of hold their own and only lose a few spots, but Hamlin has lost a considerable amount of spots since the restart, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better for him. I have to wonder if that damage is really affecting that car at the moment.
And based off of the trends here from the spring race and just stage 1, it was really clean. So he might have to wait all the way to the end of stage 2 to even have an opportunity to repair that number 11 Toyota Camry. So we could potentially see Hamlin miss out on some stage points while some drivers below the cut line capitalize on that, like a Martin Truex Jr., even a Cole Custer, but Custer did not pick up any stage points there in stage 1, so we're just about already preparing to put him in a must-win scenario going into Martinsville Speedway. Eric Almirola has shown up again in second place into turn 1, nearly making some contact with his teammate Kevin Harvick. That got very close, 3 wide for the lead. And here comes Jay, a guy we haven't even talked about all year long, Austin Dillon, who's going for the lead now as he's putting up a good performance here tonight.
We've seen Austin Dillon be a little bit strong these last couple of races, but I haven't seen him looking to go for the lead. And he's looked strong so far tonight. We were watching him earlier in stage 1. He's one of those non-playoff drivers that was ahead of a lot of playoff guys. And then Eric Almirola, I think he hurt us last week, Gary, because we haven't really mentioned him much all playoffs long. And then the first time we started mentioning his name was last week, talking about he's been underperforming and just kind of riding his way through the playoffs with his playoff points. And that's Denny Hamlin on pit road, by the way. He had to come down to fix that damage. I believe that damage was really hindering that car. But Almirola, I think, hurt us when we were mentioning that last week, and he went out and had a very good race at Texas, and then he looks very strong tonight at Kansas as well, leading this race at the moment. But I have to think that he's also hoping that Truex doesn't gain his positions back, because I noticed when Denny Hamlin was also losing positions, Martin Truex Jr. was also losing positions and was just in front of Denny Hamlin. So something went wrong for Truex at the start of this stage as well. And at the time where he needs to gain every single stage point possible, he has fallen outside the top 10.
Hamlin, by the way, already scored 1 lap down, so he is in big trouble and is potentially at risk of going 2 laps down. Almirola not very far behind that number 11 car, and we know how hard it is to make up a lap in NR2003 without the lucky dog being in this game. So that could be huge for Hamlin as well. The top 2 playoff contenders all year long have had trouble, and they run 39th and 40th with Kyle Larson being completely out of this race here in Kansas. So we have already got quite a bit of drama that we didn't expect here in Kansas, Jay. This is from what I said earlier, a very calm race from my spring race experience, and here we are seeing very unexpectedly the top 2 drivers having some severe issues that could put them both out of the final 4 depending on what happens next week in Martinsville.
Yeah, and unfortunately for those two in a what could be a very calm race, or not as chaotic as usual, they have issues that could have completely been avoided. Obviously, the mechanical issue for Larson, that something went wrong with the car there, and then Denny Hamlin having the issue of leaving his pit box and just makes contact with his teammate of Kyle Busch. Those two things obviously were something that I guess Larson's really couldn't have been avoided, but Denny Hamlin could have certainly not put himself in that position. And he gave himself that damage, had to come down to pit road, put himself a lap down, now in risk of going 2 laps down. That's going to be a really big hit to that team. Going 2 laps down is certainly going to be impossible to make up. So at the moment, those two struggling, and I'm sure the rest of these playoff drivers are seeing that, and they are now licking their lips because they know that they have a chance to possibly eliminate the top 2 drivers all season long. But luckily for both of them, once again, they have a lot of playoff points, so there is still quite the gap there.
Now, I mean, if Denny Hamlin finds himself below the cut line after tonight, which definitely is realistic, he's not anywhere near what Kyle Larson is at above that cut line. I mean, can you think of Any other place that you would rather put Denny Hamlin in a position where he really has to turn up other than Martinsville?
Yeah, Martinsville certainly would be the absolute best track for him to go to in a must-win situation. We've seen how good Denny Hamlin is at that specific track, and the man just knows exactly what he has to do as well. He knows that he would have to win going in there if that's indeed the situation that he's put in, and so I think he would do every single thing possible, be aggressive. We've seen him do that before too. So that would be an incredibly good track for Denny Hamlin. But I think also at the same time, he does not want to be in that situation at all because nothing is guaranteed. No matter how good you are to track, no matter how good you are as a driver and how good your team is, nothing is guaranteed. And we've certainly seen that so far with Larson having his issues and now Hamlin having his own issues. So I think that Denny wants to avoid that if at all possible.
You saw Almirola trying to pass Hamlin there, but Hamlin's not going to give it up easy. He knows what's on the line here. His whole season is on the line, and that put Almirola at risk of getting passed by the three of Austin Dillon there for a moment, but Almirola was really actually able to make that second lane work for him now as he goes down this backstretch close again to Denny Hamlin. Now is Ryan Blaney currently the second best playoff driver on the grid here now as you see Austin Dillon continuing to close back in. He's going to try and take another shot. Once he gets to that number 10 car now, it's just a single file train here in Kansas at the moment now as Hamlin once again might be at risk right there going a second lap down. Blaney up the inside of Kevin Harvick now. Is Hamlin going to give up that spot there to Eric Almirola? Is he going to continue the fight? It looks like he's not going to give it up so easy now, but now Almirola still up the inside as they go down into turn 3. But now, Jay, it almost looks like that second lane might be starting to come in.
Which would not surprise me at all. We know how good the outside lane and that middle lane can be here at Kansas. But I don't think we've also ever seen that happen in NR before either. So I'm not too sure if that's something that's actually happening at the moment or if maybe Denny Hamlin's car is just still that strong. But Eric Almirola, he goes up to that second line and he immediately looks like he's going to lose it in the corner, but then he gets the run down the back straightaway and should keep that position. Yes, he does. So we'll have to see if these drivers are starting to work that line in. And if they do, I think that's going to be a really good thing for this race.
Definitely could add on to making some potential moves for these guys now as they're limited to just try and force their way up the inside of each other now. So far here tonight in Kansas now as we are closing in slowly here on some more green flag pit stops now as these green flag pit stops are going to be a lot closer to the end of stage 2 than it was say to the end of stage 1 due to the fact that of course we have had those couple caution laps there. Now as Dillon trying to make a move again, doesn't quite have anything right there as Hamlin continues to hold on to the lead. What we're going to do here from Kansas though is take another quick break and we'll be back in time for the start of the second set of green flag pit stops here in stage 2. Back from Kansas, Eric Almirola still leads, but he still cannot pass that 11 of Denny Hamlin here now as they exit turn 2. Pit stops coming up very, very soon. A lot more spread out, Jay, we're seeing this time compared to the stage 1 green flag pit stop, so this should make it probably a lot easier for a bunch of drivers to get out of the pit lane this time around because we saw Elliot there in the last one. He couldn't even get into the pit lane if he wanted to. He was stuck on the outside of 3 wide both times.
Yeah, those guys were coming around to needing to pit, and they were still racing in a pack like they were at a play track. So this time around, a lot more spread out. They're going to want to all find themselves to the bottom so that they can pit whenever they want to. And hopefully for Chase Elliott, this time around, he does not have to stay out a couple of extra laps and then also choose to stay out an extra lap, even though he should have pitted. And so he's going to want to not make that mistake again this time around, as it looks like these... No, never mind, I'm reading too much into that. They're not pitting yet. But Denny Hamlin here, he's really, really given Eric Almirola a hard time, and there's several reasons for it. Obviously, Hamlin does not want to fall another lap down, but he also does not want to see Eric Almirola get this win. So if he's able to just block Almirola and slow him down enough to get somebody else in front of him, that would be extremely good for Denny Hamlin. He does not want a playoff driver to be locked in to this next round, so he's hoping that Austin Dillon can find his way in front of Eric Almirola.
Very surprised by the fall off of that 19 car of Truex down in 18th place. Here comes the pit stops here. Almirola as well as Blaney Custer stays out. Now Hamlin, we know for a fact, can go a few extra laps, Jay, compared to these guys. So he could luck out, get on the lead lap, and a caution could come out, and his whole race could be back. He could be back in business here tonight in Kansas.
It's also very possible that he could make it to the end. I'm not too sure how many laps they went before
He
he
needs
pitted.
10
I don't
laps.
think it was 9. Yeah, I don't think that it was 10 laps before he pitted, but I think it was close to that. So he might have been trying to save enough to stretch it. I don't know if he's going to be able to, but that's also a really another thing that actually could be a real positive for him if he winds up being able to make it to the end of this stage. maybe he can get himself back on the lead lap that way too. So there's still a way I think that he can get his race salvaged, but I think it's a long shot that he's able to make it.
Now, you would have thought Chase Elliott's team would have learned from stage one, but they are stretching it once again here in stage two. So, a very, very confusing sight to see there. DeBenedetto as well leading the way, but he is pitting this time, and here comes Elliott now. So, he stays out a few extra laps. Truex as well does the same strategy. I think that one's the most concerning. Jay Truex down in 18th place when we last checked on him and decides to stay out the longest of anybody.
I think that at that point he's just hoping for a caution because he knows that even if he gets on pit road and pits with all these other drivers, he's not going to be able to make up 8 spots just from pitting a lap or two early. So maybe he was just hoping for a caution and trying to stay out. And unfortunately, it didn't happen for him. And so I don't know if he's really going to lose any positions, but he certainly won't be able to gain enough to get stage points no matter what here.
We're going to see what happens with Denny Hamlin as well now, as he is going to be officially on the lead lap for the time being. So what he is hoping is a caution, or maybe somehow that team just has enough field to get to the end of stage two. 8 laps coming to 7 laps to go right now in this second stage now. So we're going to see the 10 of Almirola going to cycle out as the leader in front of that number 3 of Austin Dillon. So Almirola making the right calls, and Jay, another guy making the right call. Cole Custer is going to be in third place. What a moment for this team again, who's been showing so much more speed than we ever expected, but obviously 51 points below the cut line. Third place is not going to cut it.
I think Cole Custer's got to be one of the fastest cars on the track at the moment because he started this stage way down there around where Truex fell, around 15th place or so, and he's found himself up in third place now. Obviously, I think he might have pitted a couple laps earlier too, and that probably helped. But Cole Custer has got some extreme speed in that car, and he just keeps doing every single little thing possible that he has to do to advance himself in these playoffs. And third place, like Gary mentioned, is still currently not enough to do that, but he's close to the lead, and if he's got a fast enough car, he might be able to take the lead on the stage 3 restart.
There you saw Chase Elliott not even in the top 20 after staying out as long as he did right there. So a huge hit to that team. As you see, Austin Dillon putting some pressure on. Denny Hamlin stays out, so they'll be coming to 5 laps to go here in stage 2. And Hamlin is still on the lead lap, but can he make it? Of course, that is the question. Nobody else is retired other than Kyle Larson here. As we're going to see Austin Dillon maybe put that fight to that 10 of Almirola now, as Almirola came in here 13 points above the cut line. Well, had a top 5 in stage 1 and is on track to win stage 2, or at least a top 2, top 3 once again. And Jay, I mean, as it stands right now, even if Almirola doesn't win this race, keeps running the way he is, he might actually be the top driver on the standings going into Martinsville, which I don't think any of us ever expected in potentially any dimension or storyline possible.
Yeah, that's certainly Denny Hamlin on pit road. He could not make it to the end, so that's going to put him a lap down again, maybe 2, considering how long he stayed out there. But yeah, that's really going to be extremely surprising to potentially see Almirola on top of the leaderboard after this, or on top of the playoff guys after this race. And I think we will see that as well, because Larson was only 30 points above, and obviously Eric Almirola is going to get a lot more than 30 points this race. So I think that he will be our first driver in the playoff grid, and then we're going to have, I think, an all-out duel for those last 3 spots between Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and a lot of other guys who are close on points. Chase Elliott, who's also... He came into this race close on points, but he's certainly hurt himself in these stages, and he's going to be a lot further down than he was when he came into this race. Denny Hamlin 2 laps down now, by the way.
And Blaney, of course, got 1 stage point there in stage 1, so he was at least 2 points ahead of Elliott, but right now runs 5th, so he's going to add 6 more and still at least be about 8 points above that cut line. And we were looking at Truex maybe getting himself above the cut line here with the way he was running in stage 1, but now he is all the way down in 19th place. Elliott, 25th. They are both going to have to pull off one heck of a stage 3 if they want to get up in the mix. And as well, Jay, as we approach the final lap in the stage, them running so bad today currently isn't the end of the world, because they have Larson and Hamlin with their issues. So they really might not even lose that much and still have a fighting shot going into next week.
And I think for Larson and Hamlin, it's a good thing to see Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott struggling so much right now, because if those two were running up inside the top 10, we could really see Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott extremely close to Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. So those two, I think, are thankful for that at the moment as well. Excuse me. So at the moment, I think that these playoff points are going to be a little bit closer than they were coming into this race. Uh, but I still don't know if we're going to see Chase Elliott or Martin Truex Jr. make up those points gaps that they've created for themselves here in these first two
Oh,
stages.
Austin Dillon steals the Sage win from Eric Almirola at the very last second. 1 point right there that he just stole from Almirola. Could that 1 point be the difference maker at the end of next week in Martinsville? We, of course, have to wait and see in 1 week's time. But wow, Austin Dillon put one heck of a run through 3 and 4 together right there. Cole Custer, third place. But like I said, 51 points below the cut line coming into today. Third place, not going to do a whole lot for Cole Custer unless some more guys, other than Kyle Larson, as well as Denny Hamlin, have issues here in this third and final stage. Then you never know. That 41 could have a fighting chance going into Martinsville here now, as they will, of course, be coming into the pit lane. We'll be watching other drivers here as Hamlin. He is going to, oh no, he's not staying out. He's just 2 laps down, so he'll have to come in next time. But we got to watch for potential situations like Hamlin encountered there at the end of that first stage pit stop. Because, Jay, we saw that one mistake from a driver getting caught up in the pit lane has potentially ruined his whole season.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, I think, are going to have that in the back of their mind. I'm sure their crew chiefs or spotters are mentioning that to them, telling them, hey, be clean on pit road here. Have get out of your box slowly if you have to. Get a good angle and make sure you don't run into somebody else. And also don't have somebody else run into you. They really don't want to have issues here. Ryan Blaney's going to have a great pit road. He's going to
Look at
actually take the
Almirola.
lead. And Almirola just lost a ton of spots on pit road. I don't know what just happened, but somehow Ryan Blaney came out of nowhere and took the lead.
Damage to the left side of the 14. Same situation as Hamlin. Obviously not a playoff contender, but that's a big hit to Almirola right there. Now his Custer will be on the front row or second place in line for the start of the third and final stage. We're going to go for a break, and we'll be back for the final stage here of the middle race of the round of 12. Back from Kansas, one final stage remains. 50 laps of racing. It will require just one pit stop left here on the night, which we expect to see once again under green flag conditions. We saw some mixed pit stops right there, as we saw 2 tires, 4 tires as we were underway for the start of stage 3. And what we haven't done today is amp segment. So you know what? For the start of stage 3, let's get amped here in Kansas Speedway. There you have the AM segment here from Kansas Speedway. William Byron now has joined the party here in Kansas as he is 37 points below the cut line coming into tonight. Not been getting any stage points, so not the position he wants to be in. We're also seeing Eric Almirola move his way forward there. Blaney, who got the lead on 2 tires versus Almirola 4. We're now starting to see that come into effect. But Jay, William Byron joining the mix all of a sudden. He looks like he's found some speed here for the start of stage 3.
I think what we're starting to see here, Gary, is a mix of strategies. I believe that obviously Blaney took the lead on 2 tires, and Eric Almirola lost those spots because he took 4 tires. So I think that there was a bit of a mix on pit road. Some drivers going with 4, some drivers going with 2. And what we're starting to see now is those drivers who took 4, they're starting to gain in positions, and the drivers who took 2, like Blaney, are starting to lose all their spots. So I think that's why William Byron is where he's at the moment in 3rd place. And we're starting to see some of those guys who took 4 gain their positions back. And Chase Elliott here, he also by the way, took 2 tires on pit road, but he had to fix some damage, we believe, and sat in his box for a while, lost a lot of spots, went back towards the back of this line almost, but it looks like he's gained up a pretty good amount of positions right now, but he's still, playoff point-wise and playoff position-wise, he's still in a bad spot.
He is going to have to hope for some help here now as Byron has run down these top 2 drivers. Kyle Busch in the mix. Kyle Busch missed the playoffs for the first time since 2012 when he was beat out by Jeff Gordon by just a couple of points there at Richmond Raceway. And now here he is missing it this year. Still winless, looking for his first win on the season. Now is Byron trying to make a move to the inside of your Stage 2 winner of Austin Dillon, who stole that stage victory in the very final seconds against Eric Almirola. Now, Jay, that would be a bit of a surprise Final Four entry. I think Byron, he's been consistent all year long, but we haven't really considered him to be a championship favorite. And here he is after trouble in Texas, trying to, go for this win here for the second time this season. He did get one win earlier in the year at Circuit of the Americas, but like I said, I think it'd be a bit of a surprise to see him in the Final Four, but he has a legitimate chance to do that now.
At the moment, we have a real chance to see some surprise drivers make the Final Four. Obviously, with Larson and Hamlin having their issues, Larson, I think, is still going to be in a decent position heading into Martinsville. But Denny Hamlin, being only 23 points above the cut line, he's going to certainly be uncomfortable and around the cut line, if not potentially below it by a couple of points. So at the moment, I think we could potentially see some surprise guys make that Final Four, like William Byron, if he's able to have a good race here, gaining some points on those guys struggling, going to Martinsville in a better position. If Cole Custer could win this race, that would lock him in. And he certainly would be a surprise. I think Ryan Blaney, even though he has been extremely strong, he's not a championship favorite in my opinion. I've been thinking he's going to make the Final Four, but I didn't ever really consider him to be a championship contender. Certainly looking like at the moment he's going to make the Final Four, and it could be a guy to go and compete for it. So if we wind up seeing somebody like Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson miss out, I think Ryan Blaney then moves further up that conversation of championship favorite. So we could really see some surprise guys here have really good races and get themselves into that Final Four, and drivers who we thought would make it, they could miss.
Almirola is about to put the fight to William Byron there in that number 10 Mobil 1 Ford Mustang there for Stuart Haas Racing, as he has just put it up there, the results he has in this round. In the back, we got some 3-wide action there with Kurt Busch, Christopher Bell, Chastain as well as you got Reddick battling with Blaney and Custer as they go down into turn 1 there. Now Blaney, he's now down, falling down through the order. Almirola just blew the doors off of William Byron there through turns 1 and 2, and he's up in a 3rd place. And Jay, I don't know, I can't remember what the 3 car took, 2 tires to 4 tires, but so far, I mean, from what we've seen from stage 2, the only driver that has anything for Almirola is that 3 of Austin Dillon, who's now seeing that he's got a mirror full of Almirola. He knows he needs to go for that move now on Logano.
I think this group here from Logano back to Matt DiBenedetto all took 4 tires because they pulled away from everybody else. And if not, if some of these drivers up here have taken 2, well, obviously they've done a very nice job of handling those 2 tires, because the others who took 2, like Ryan Blaney, he's fallen way down the order and continuing to lose spots. So I think everybody up towards the front right now has taken 4, and they put themselves in a great position, like William Byron. He put himself in a really nice position right now, but I still think that he doesn't have the speed to compete with Eric Almirola. Eric Almirola looks like he has an incredibly strong car. So I think really his only competition that we've seen so far is Austin Dillon, and Eric Almirola is going to make easy work of even him.
Byron trying to clear that 22 of Logano. Can he do it? No, he cannot. Almirola as well cannot clear that number 3 of Austin Dillon as they go down into turn 3, already closing in on the final 35 laps of this race here from Kansas Speedway. Now Byron desperately trying to get clear of Logano. Austin Dillon hangs on, looking for his first win of the season. He won 1 race last year in 2020 at Texas Motor Speedway. It was actually a Richard Childress 1-2, as both Austin Dillon and Reddick stayed out on track and were able to just use the clean air, the simple advantage to hold on to win that race. Now, as you see, Kyle Busch trying to make a move back up the inside of Kevin Harvick. But shout out to Christopher Bell, Jay. We haven't really seen Christopher Bell do a whole lot this season. Hasn't done much, missed the playoffs, wasn't even in the fight barely, and here he is today running in the top 10, having a good run in Kansas.
We've also seen a few of those races out of him these playoffs as well, a few times where he's looked better than he ran the majority of the season. So he started to turn it up a little bit, maybe build some momentum up for next year, and come back and hopefully have a playoff run next season. And I'm sure Christopher Bell expects better of himself than the season that he had this year. So Christopher Bell is going to look to be strong again next season. But you know what I'm noticing right now, Gary, is these guys are able to make moves in that second lane. I really do think that lane is coming in. We've seen Joey Logano defend in that lane a bit. He's made a pass now, I think, in that outside lane. Austin Dillon had Eric Almirola go to his inside, and it's going to happen again right here. But we've seen him be able to defend from that second lane and continue to get the run up there and be able to keep that position while running in that second lane. So I think we might be seeing the top side of this track starting to come in and work. And if it really does start to get to where that's the preferred lane, I think this race could get really interesting if we see these guys start to run the outside.
You see right here on that second lane, Austin Dillon's able to hold off that 10, and now Logano, who is running up to that outside, is closing in now. Dillon does not clear that 10 car on the outside, but he still remains ahead of him now as it looks like Almirola gets closer and closer to clearing that 3 of Austin Dillon. Could he pull it off right here? I think he will, actually, yes. He gets clear of Austin Dillon. Now Dillon, actually, he's going to do a bit of a switchback there on that 10 car and go down to the inside. Now Byron's under attack from the 21 of Matt DiBenedetto, but look at that, the 10. He's able to just outpower that 3 on the exit of the corner, and here comes Logano to the outside. They're trying to make a move as well. So now Dillon under attack here as Almirola back out in front. Could you imagine if he wins today here in Kansas Speedway and clinches or punches his ticket into that final 4? Would be a big shock to both myself and Jay. Now update Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney. Now Blaney has fallen behind that 9 car down all the way in 19th place. We've seen Elliott continuing to move his way forward here since this final stage has gotten underway. And Jay, I think honestly their only option might be, instead of staying out longer this time, short pit, try to get that track position.
Yeah, he's really got to learn his lesson from those 2 times he's pitted so far. And if he stays out long again, obviously that team has learned nothing, and they're just they're putting themselves in this situation and really hurting themselves. They know better than what to do now. They should have known better after the first pit stop, and yet they still did it again on the second one, and it cost them a lot of spots that they're just now starting to make up. So they really have to consider that going into these next or going into this last pit stop. They have to make sure that they get on pit road, I think, around the same time as these drivers, if not before the other drivers in the playoffs and ahead of them. So I think that a lap or 2 early, you can make it within a couple laps from now to the end. So I think that they have to consider pitting in a lap or 2.
And you saw Byron, not sure exactly what happened, but he went from 3rd place. Now he's barely hanging on to the top 10 here in just a matter of a couple of laps. Now Austin Dillon is hanging with that 10 car. We saw that in stage 2. Almirola was out in front, but that 3 car had enough speed in that draft to hold on, and he made a move on the very final lap of stage 2. We'll see what he's able to do here now with less than 30 laps to go in this race. Pit stops already getting ready to happen here, so we're actually going to stay right here in Kansas. No break just yet now as Almirola tries to hang on. Now, Jay, what do you think would be the situation maybe for Almirola? Do you pit as early as possible here? You don't want to stay out longer. You've seen how that's affected people, and now he knows he's got a car capable of winning. So what would you think that 10 car would be potentially doing here for their final pit stop?
I think you have to consider pitting early because we've seen that being such an advantage so far tonight, and we haven't seen a single caution fly either, except for the stage breaks. So I think if you're that 10 team right now, you're willing to risk pitting early, knowing that that's the right strategy move, and risk that there's not going to be a caution. We haven't seen anything remotely close to a wreck tonight so far. So I think that it would be a smart move to get on pit road early, much like a lot of these other drivers had to be thinking that same thing as well, because just again, there's been no even risk of a caution tonight. So I don't think you have to try and play that strategy of stay out and hope for a caution, because you're not going to get one. You really have to get to pit road early.
Chase Elliott has been on the move here in stage 3, honestly. I think one of the fastest cars. You look at fastest laps on the day. He has the 2nd fastest lap here in the session. So that 9 car on the move, but obviously if it stays green, he's not going to have any opportunity to win this race. Now, look at these 2 drivers. Alex Bowman and Christopher Bell both missed the playoffs. Now here they are in these closing laps, running in the top 5. Now, Jay, we've talked about Bowman, of course. Lately, he's been putting better runs together, but he still hasn't been putting the finishes together. Now, 25 laps to go coming through. This time by the caution is out, actually, as we're just talking about that. Oh, I think we've actually had a big accident here, as it looks like multiple cars involved, and already there's cars on the pit lane, so green flag pit stops are happening at the same time, so let's not even bother with the 48. What has just happened here in Kansas now, as we have playoff drivers on the pit lane at the time of the caution. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Do you know?
I think that's an advantage depending on where the pace car is right now, and I don't think it's anywhere near getting them a lap down. It's not. So I think that's going to be a huge advantage to those guys who just pitted there. They should be able to make their way around and take the lead here as long as they're not already a lap down, which I don't think they are. For William Byron and Ryan Blaney, that might have just
They're on the
saved
lead
and
lap.
made their season. That might have just put William Byron in the lead of this race or close to it. In a situation where he really, really, really needs to win, and this could also potentially put that 10 farther back in traffic because there was quite a few cars on pit road there.
Out of nowhere, an accident in Kansas. You can see the skid marks. We'll get a replay in just a moment. We need to see, of course, where everybody cycles out right here now, as Almirola is going to be the first one out, but obviously you can see here, I mean, he's going to come out behind Ryan Blaney. He's going to come out behind the 47, the 2, the 24, the 22, who was in the pit lane as well. And William Byron has just been given a second opportunity and maybe a golden opportunity to win his way into the Final Four here in Kansas. What a change of events all of a sudden. What we're going to do is take a look at what just happened here, bringing out that crash. No playoff drivers looked to be involved. It looked like it was towards the back of the grid. So let's see what happened here from Kansas Speedway. Here's a look at what happened. Corey LaJoie Chastain going down into turn 3, make contact right there. Into the wall he goes, collecting the 17 and a few others as well, as the 00 would come piling in there. As Jay, it looked like the 7 was trying to come down the track a little bit there, and Chastain maybe wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, Corey LaJoie might have been checking up to try to get to pit road, and he was just on the outside lane trying to go all the way to the bottom. And there was obviously a car that was inside, and he got destroyed and got wrecked. And it collected a bunch of other drivers. The 66 and the 00 going typical NR ARCA brakes and not slowing down and collecting themselves in the wreck into something that was completely avoidable. Now the one thing that we have to worry about is if those drivers with all the damage, did they get enough to DNF, or are they now going to be slow drivers and in the way of all these leaders?
Now getting ready to go green for what could be the final time here from Kansas Speedway now, as it is going to be just over 20 laps to go. Should not be any pit stops necessary from this point on here, as Joey Logano out in front over William Byron Kozlowski there with a little bit of front end damage now, as Almirola, Jay is still, within striking distance. Of course, he could pull this off, but now, I mean, he's got to get through guys that are pretty much on even tires this time compared to 2 tires what he was fighting through last time. So this could be a very difficult task at hand for him, as we already see William Byron to the lead and clear of Logano. This could be huge for the playoffs.
That's huge for William Byron, and yes, also huge for the playoffs as well. Ryan Blaney, don't forget, is right there as well. He's got 2 teammates in front of him. They may not fight him so hard, knowing what his situation is and knowing what he needs to do. But for Almirola, he's got such a strong car as well, and there's such a long amount of time left. I think that there is all the time in the world for him to get up to the front and get it back in the lead once again. And obviously, Joey Logano has been around the top of the group, or top of the race all day long. So he's probably also going to be strong, and certainly showing it here that he's going to be going at William Byron still. He's not going to make it easy for William Byron.
Of course not. He's trying to help his teammate of Ryan Blaney as well. Almirola, so far not making great ground. Suarez up here in the top 10. He won his first career race earlier this year in one of the Pocono double headers. Byron's going to get clear. One car we are keeping an eye on real quick is that number 17 down on power after being a part of that accident. We'll see if this field has to deal with that number 17 car before this race comes to a close. Logano back out in front. Blaney there on the back. That 24 of William Byron. Almirola found an opportunity right there to get down to that inside, so don't count him out now that he's gotten in that lane where he's been making a lot of time up here tonight in Kansas. Now, the odds of him winning at this point, less than 20 to go, it might not be great, but he's definitely making some headway here, so we'll have to wait and see what happens now. Jay, if you're that 24 of William Byron, you know the point situation. I mean, you got to be going all in at this point trying to get this win.
He certainly could still point his way in, so I think that he's thinking about that as well. But he knows that a win locks him in. He doesn't have to worry about points at that point, or at that moment once he wins. So that's still going to be his number 1 goal, to go and get that win. But look who's also charging from behind. That 10 is coming. He's got a lot of time left, and he is really moving at the moment. He's got such a strong car. He's going to be get past his 2 car here, and he's going to be right up on the back of that 24 of William Byron. So Byron has got to find his way to the lead right now. He's got to get there and hope that Joey Logano puts up a fight to that 10. And Joey Logano might just do that as well, because he still doesn't want any playoff driver to win, whether it's that 24 or the 10. The only one he wants to win is that 12 car, which Ryan Blaney is falling back now in a big, giant pack.
Oh, in the wall.
That's also a group that could cause some issues there. As you just saw the 20 get in the wall. If there's going to be some calamity from anywhere, it's going to be right here.
Yeah, we saw Chase Elliott, by the way. Byron trying to make a move for the lead again, but Chase Elliott, once again, poor timing of that caution with the pit stops and everything. He actually fell all the way back to about 25th place. So once again, he's trying to move his way back forward. He finally got up into the mid-teens by the time that caution came out. So very unfortunate there. Almirola about to join the party. Look at the speed in that 10 car. He's going to be all over the back bumper of that 24 in just a matter of moments there. That 9, once again, that 9 car, Jay, honestly, I think is a top 5 car here tonight, but they've just gotten themselves, or shot themselves in the foot all night long now as Almirola makes a move on the 24.
Yeah, Chase Elliott is very strong, but so is that 10. That 10 going right at the 24. He knows he does not want to see William Byron win this race, and Aric Almirola wants to win this for himself to get himself locked in. A guy all season long just kind of, or all playoffs long, just kind of riding through it. Now needs to take advantage of others struggling, get a win in this race, and get himself locked in and give himself a chance to win the championship.
And Byron stays clear and now brings the 3 of Austin Dillon into the battle. The 10 sends it up the inside, nearly made some contact with the 24, and this is allowing that 22 of Joey Logano to run away in the back. I see it right there. Ryan Blaney way off the pace. He is now getting passed by that 9 of Chase Elliott there, and that number 9 at Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet as Byron continues to remain ahead of Almirola, actually doing a great job on that outside. Now, is this field, I'm thinking, is going to run down the 18 to Kyle Busch, not the 17 of Chris Buescher. Busch spent some extra time on the pit lane as the 48 actually makes a move up the inside of Almirola. Jay, of course, some team play going on there. Byron, he needs help, and now he's got his teammate of Bowman trying to put that fight to Almirola.
And even if that fight does go to Almirola, the fight is still there with that leader of Joey Logano. Again, he doesn't want to let anybody win this race either because of his teammate Ryan Blaney. So he's going to put up a fight to no matter who is going to try and pass him here. And he's also had a really good car. We've seen him up front all race long. So at the moment, Joey Logano proving to be somebody who's very hard to pass, and William Byron really giving a hard time to Aric Almirola as well.
Byron trying to hold on. He wants to, of course, have an opportunity to win this race, but he still has 12 laps to go this time by if he wants that opportunity. He's got to wait it out now as you see Elliot continuing to move his way forward. He is now up inside the top 15. That 9 car is making some good progress, and he knows he needs to try and get as many spots to compared to that 12 of Ryan Blaney as possible. A move up the inside of Byron from that number 10 of Almirola. Can he clear him right there? Is that second lane going to prevail once again? It looks like they're going to be pretty even on the exit of turn 2. And now Jay, Byron's got to be hoping Bowman's going to be coming here to put that fight to that 10 as he actually stays clear again into turn 3.
Yeah, William Byron really needs Alex Bowman to get up there and put the pressure on the 10 car, get him to that second lane, and give William Byron all the freedom to go at Joey Logano. But just again, William Byron's not been able to do much on Logano. He's just been able to ride behind him, and especially with that 10 fighting him like that, William Byron's not going to be able to do anything. So Alex Bowman, he really needs him, or William Byron really needs Alex Bowman to get down there and put the fight to Aric Almirola. But at the moment, it might be too little too late because Aric Almirola's got to Byron's inside. And in that second lane, even though it's better than it was early in the race, it's still not the dominant lane.
Out of 4, they're still going to be side by side. Byron, I mean, if he gets cleared by that 10, it could be game over, and it looks like that might happen here down into turn 1 as he is going to just about complete the pass, and he will complete it for the time being, and easily should be able to slide up in front of that 24 on the exit of the corner. Now, Jay, he has to hope he stays clear of the 3 and hope that both Almirola and that 22 start battling it out, because then Byron might still have an opportunity to win this race.
Austin Dillon is also coming. He's another guy who's been really fast in this race. The 3 of the top 4 at the moment have been our fastest cars of the race. Chase Elliott is another guy who's been extremely fast. He just has not had the track position, which he's also still making up a lot of spots here. He's doing everything good. Just unfortunately for him, he lost so many points in the stages that it's really not going to make that much of a difference to Ryan Blaney here. But Aric Almirola needs to do everything he can to get past Joey Logano, and then William Byron might hope that he can follow Aric Almirola through and then put his own challenge to Almirola with just a few laps left.
Up the inside of Joey Logano goes at 10, but he doesn't have anything right there, and that could be an opportunity maybe for Byron to pounce on. He's actually going to stay up in that second lane, but not enough there. Here comes that 3 of Austin Dillon. Look at the run the 3 car has down into turn 1. He's going to make a move up the inside of that number 24 Exalta Chevrolet there, as he's been the only one really to put the fight to Almirola. We saw him steal the stage win, and you can see right there that's worst case scenario for Byron, Jays. It looks like that 3 will have a legitimate opportunity to get clear.
I think Byron knows at this point that his chances to win are just going away. He needs to just salvage the best position that he can And at the moment, I don't know if if his plan should be to let the three go or if he should fight the three. Because if he lets the three go, Austin Dillon may be able to put the fight to Eric Almirola if Almirola gets around Joey Logano. But at the same time, Byron needs to get every single point possible in case that 10 does not win to have himself as close to that cutoff line as he can. So at the moment, everything kind of going wrong for William Byron, but he still has a chance as long as that 10 does not win and if William Byron gets like a second or third place here.
The two lowest drivers in points having very good top five runs. The two top drivers in points having miserable runs in a DNF here today. Now as Almirola is in position to make a move, but Austin Dillon as well right on the back of that 10 as they go down into turn 1, as this is going to be the moment that really decides it all right here now as they are running down that number 17 who is really down on pace. So keep that in mind. It might not be over yet. There could be some lap traffic getting up into the mix here now as we see Byron on the inside of that number 3 of Austin Dillon there, who lost a lot of momentum. He's going to actually get clear of that 3 car of Austin Dillon. Here comes the 41 of Cole Custer. Jay, there is so much potential here for some playoff chaos if one of those two drivers wins this race.
Our bottom two drivers in the points at the moment having really nice runs. And then Eric Almirola, a guy who's not had the greatest performance of all the playoffs long, is looking to go for the win here at Kansas to lock himself into the Final Four. So this is some really good stuff going on here. Like you mentioned, our top guys in the playoffs struggling, having bad finishes in this race. And then 3 of the guys who either are in the bottom of the points or just somebody that's been struggling all playoffs long, really putting himself in fantastic position here. Cole Custer looks like he's going to get around the 24 of William Byron. Maybe he can go put a challenge on Eric Almirola in these final laps.
Almirola might clear that 22 right here on the exit of turn 2. Is he going to? He's not. Yes, he is. He is going to clear that 22, but here comes Cole Custer as they go down into turn 3. Could you imagine if he pulls off the win here? The 17's coming in the pit lane. He is going to get out of the way, but that 10 car is long gone already on the exit of the corner, and Cole Custer is not able to clear the 22. So now Logano is going to have to try and put the fight back to Almirola now, as we're going to be 3 wide down into turn 1 here with 3 laps to go. At this point, Jay, you're just hoping that that 10 car doesn't win this race, as it doesn't look like any other playoff contenders are going to have anything as they're stuck in this fight.
Yeah, these playoff guys right now, the 41 and the 24, this is worst case scenario for them. Chase Elliott, too. Chase Elliott's right there, actually, inside the top 10 at the moment. And Martin Truex Jr. Those two have done a great job rebounding and at a point where they needed to. Both of those guys potentially going to be below the cut line after this race, but they're getting all the points that they need to at the moment. But yeah, worst case scenario for all of these guys right here in this big pack. Worst case scenario is they get wrecked, but also worst case is that Eric Almirola wins this race. They don't want to see a single playoff driver get locked in, and that looks like is what's going to happen.
Oh boy. They're going to be coming up on lap traffic here, coming to the final lap. Logano and Almirola. That 17 is not going to be coming into the pit lane. Now it's all down to where they run in that 17 car down. White flag in the air there to the back of the 17. He's going to move up the track in front of the 10. Here goes the 22 of Logano up the inside, but now the 17 is going to plant himself in front of the 22, and it might be the 10 of Almirola. No, that 17 is going to slide up in front of Eric Almirola on the final lap in Kansas, and Joey Logano into turn 3 will take the lead away through the final turn now, as Almirola has been robbed of a Final Four lock, as out of turn 4, Joey Logano wins in Kansas. Almirola, wow, what a finish. I mean, Jay, we thought that lap traffic might play a role, but then he pitted with a couple of laps remaining. We thought he was gone. Come into the final lap, he presents himself directly in front of the battle for the win. Almirola, who was moments away from being locked into the Final Four, will now have to go into Martinsville and fight it out, just like the rest of everybody else.
Wow. I mean, I thought when the 17 pitted, I thought there would be no way he would have an interference in this race, and obviously he found a way to still do it, and boy, did he do it. That's a shame for Eric Almirola, but I have to say, I'm kind of glad that happened, not because I don't want to see Eric Almirola win, but simply because I like it when playoff drivers are not locked in based on their wins. I want to see the playoff battle and how close it is after this race, and I think it's going to be a lot closer with that 10 not getting the win. It is unfortunate for him that it ended that way with the lap car doing that, but I mean, he had every opportunity to get around him to the inside, even though the 17 kind of went up and blocked a little bit. There was still lots of room to the inside that the 10 should have went with, and could have gone to. So just, I mean, what an unexpected finish and heartbreaking for that 10 of Eric Almirola. He thought that he was going to have this race locked up and have his championship 4 bid locked up. And now he's going to have to go into next week potentially around the cutoff line, or well, not around the cutoff line. He actually had a great race, but just not locked in, and anything can happen, specifically at Martinsville. Which, by the way, Martinsville next week, Gary. I think with how I've seen every single time I've done NR or Martinsville and NR, it truly will be chaotic, and I don't think we're going to have many cars left on lead lap by the end of that race.
I think, considering nobody has won their way into the Final Four, Martinsville is going to come down to who has the best luck to get into this Final Four. As we could easily see, Almirola, hands down, will be the top seed at the end of today. But one wreck, he's done. So, what a finish! What a race here in Kansas. Only one crash all night long, but it certainly spiced things up and got us one heck of a finish here in Kansas Speedway. There, as you saw the finishing order on your screen, Elliot, it was right there in the top 10. There was, I mean, I don't know how many cars going at it there from third on back, and Elliot actually ends up in 14th place. Byron 8th, as well as Truex got a 9th place finish. Christopher Bell rounded out the top 10. By the way, shout out to Alex Bowman, 3rd place in Kansas. Now, what a race it was, and your bottom two drivers for the playoffs, of course, were Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. The top two seeds are going to be very much so at risk going into the next episode in Martinsville for the elimination race to decide the Final Four. As always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. Last time we went to Martinsville, it was crazy. We expect the exact same thing this time around. We will see you guys next week, where we will decide who makes the Final Four. We'll have the updated playoff grid right at the end of this episode, and next week we'll be following along live. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.